Hello and welcome to High Point Music's Gear Reviews. I'm Lewis, and in today's episode I'm going to show you the last of the Mad Professor amp in a box pedals that we're showing at the moment, the Big Tweedy Drive. The Big Tweedy Drive is based on the sounds of the American Fender twin amps of the 50s. The Tweed amplifiers, which is the type of finish on the Tolex that they used, are considered some of the most classic guitar tones of that era. Rock guitarists, blues guitarists, jazz guitarists, most people would be familiar with that tone at some point or another. So being able to access those otherwise very expensive vintage amp sounds in pedal is a really good thing. They do suggest in the manual that we stack something before the Big Tweedy Drive to help push it into some other areas of dynamics. So I've got the Sweet Honey Overdrive Deluxe, also by Mad Professor here, just waiting and ready to pounce in beforehand, so I'll show you a little bit of that later. Of course, I want to show the EQ controls. We've got a tone and a presence control. We've got a volume and a gain control. The tone is a high frequency control. The presence is a overall mid-range kind of sound. It helps to bring the pedal into the mix or out of the mix a little bit. So I'll show you some gain ranges and some EQ ranges and then what it sounds like stacked. Of course, I'm playing my Fender Stratocaster. This is my clean tone, my bridge pickup. Running through the Sweet Honey Overdrive, which is not turned on at the moment, into the Big Tweedy Drive, into the two notes clean, and then off to the recording system. So let's get into it. So I've got the Big Tweedy Drive dialed in reasonably mildly on all the settings, and then we'll go a little bit less gain, a little bit higher gain, just to show by comparison. This is what it sounds like at the moment. Responds reasonably well to dynamics. Let's pull that gain down a little bit. A little more volume to compensate for that change in gain. So lower gain, there's not a huge range. It seems reasonably tight as far as the gain response goes. I'll push that up a little bit higher than where we had it before. And it gets pretty crispy there, so let's go back to 12. And then up a little higher. Higher still. So at the maximum clipping range now, pull our volume control down a little bit. So you can go from a reasonably mild overdrive to a pretty saturated sound. Sounds pretty good. You definitely get a little bit more attack and a little bit more clipping when you're playing full chords rather than lead work. But I think that helps to keep your lead tone nice and bright and stand out in the mix. So let's go back to a more amp-like setting, an amp on the edge kind of sound. I'm going to use the presence control to make that as bright as I can get it. tone control, which is a treble control. I'm going to push that up as well. It does have a pretty decent change in sound there. Typically on a valve amplifier, they will have a presence control, and the presence control is used to compensate for, as the valves age, they lose top end response, and there's usually a little bit of a filter there. So the presence control, when it's down, it'll take the top end off new valves to help it sound less harsh, and then it'll allow that filter to pass more signal through when they get older, so you can kind of get the most tone out of your amplifier. So presence control is something I'm pretty fond of. It's making my neck pickup sound pretty bright. And the bridge is nice and crispy, so I can probably come down a little more in gain. Not that much. And then hit it with the Sweet Honey Overdrive. So stacking an overdrive pedal before the big Tweedy changes the response of the harmonics. Because we're running an overdriven signal in, you're getting a little bit more extra clipping, and that's where those harmonics come from. It does also give it a bit more of a compressed tone. Because it's clipping more, but it does give you that pedal in front of an amplifier-like sound. You can dial that gain up. Like so. Pretty thick and crunchy kind of tones, be great for blues or rock kind of sounds, and pretty classic combination of overdrive pedals. So there you have it. That is the big Tweedy drive. I think it definitely achieves that amp in a box style aesthetic. It's got good dynamic range, it's got a good low gain range, a very simple EQ control, but a very powerful EQ control. It does sound good with a pedal stacked in front of it, and you can get extra layers of dynamics by doing so. So I think if you're playing into a clean amp all the time, or maybe you're changing amps regularly, backline or rehearsal rooms, it's a great way to get that classic American Fender sound no matter what amp you're running into. Very, very useful for a gigging guitarist, very, very useful for somebody who appreciates a consistent guitar tone and wants to get the same thing every time. If you'd like to check out something like the big Tweedy drive, you can follow the link below. We've also got a link there to the video for the Sweet Honey Overdrive. You can see a little bit more about what it does and how that combination or a similar combination might be useful to you. If you've enjoyed the video, we would appreciate the feedback. Give us a like, a share, a follow, a thumbs up on our social media. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.